You're listening to Vet Synapse, a podcast connecting the world of research, innovation, and practical help to the veterinary profession. I'm your host, Dr. Philip Judge from Vet Education. Let's get connected with Vet Synapse. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Vet Synapse. I'm Philip here from Vet Education, and today we're thrilled to welcome an outstanding veterinarian, Dr. Sonja Olson. Dr. Olson has been a veterinarian for over 25 years, emergency critical care practice and exotics practice in both corporate and the private practice world. She's written a book, and we're going to talk about this book in a little time. But Sonja, welcome to the podcast Vet Synapse today. And I'm wondering if you could just share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here writing this particularly interesting book.
Yeah, thank you to you, Philip. And I'm delighted to be here in this audience with you and bringing this important conversation forward. And I hope that for your audience's sake, know that we are going to be lighthearted about this, even though some parts of what we're talking about can be kind of heavy and emotional. We are really wanting to bring this into a space of where we bring community and compassion and relatability. And that's really what the intention of the book really was. Yep, as Philip mentioned, a long-term veterinary practitioner, mentor, teacher, student along the way, as I hope we all are. And I think that the other piece that's important for you all to know is that I've also been a fitness instructor, yoga, meditation practitioner, and teacher that helped to keep me in a healthier space overall as I did my veterinary work. And it really informed me about how much I also care about human well-being. And I think that's really valuable for us to just acknowledge that we know animals fare better when humans are better. So I think this is just true. So that's really something that really became a passion of mine over the course of time, put a lot of time and energy into self-directed learnings and certifications that led to one role after another around becoming really a new pioneering role in veterinary wellness education and teaching. So that's really what I've been up to as I left the clinical floor and moved into the space of supporting our people.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. That kind of leads nicely into the title of your book, which is titled Creative Wellbeing and Building Resilience in the Veterinary Profession, A Call to Life. I really like that title. Even though our profession is a wonderful place to be. It's caring, it's immensely satisfying, it provides both intellectual and practical challenges and so on. It's also quite a demanding place to be sometimes. And we know that in our profession, we face a lot of challenges on a daily basis, oftentimes, that range from professional challenges that encompass managing our patients, their diagnostic and therapeutic conundrums, as well as their owners' expectations, finances, and other client-centered issues. Along with that, we're often quite self-critical to our own detriment, and we can sometimes be quite critical of others as well. So given all of this, it might seem an obvious question, but what prompted you to write this book? And I know the title gives a bit away, but I wonder if you can just expand a little bit on that for us.
Yeah, everything that you said and then some is the truth. I think that for all of us, we recognize that our professional identity really subsumes our personal identity, and we get very entangled in our work as the reason we are on this planet and our worth in the world. That's something that is unique to all segments of vet med, and globally it is true. And it's not every person to the same degree. Yet I do want to call forward that if we are very much in the space of othering and caring for others all the time, and it is the message that we have given ourselves and that we tell one another that it is selfish, it's self-indulgent to invest in ourselves, time, energy, etc., that's a fast track for certain for illness, whether that be mental, physical, emotional, and for burnout, and for you not to sustainably to be able to do the work you love. So really, this is the conversation is, can we normalize that this is a beautiful, rich field of work? It's very fulfilling. We do good things in the world. We help animals. We help one health, whole systems. And that we need a community to do it, and we need to be well individually and collectively to do this work. That is what this conversation is all about, that you're not alone. And what you're experiencing is so much more common than you could possibly imagine. So really normalizing it, decreasing stigma, increasing community, increasing awareness and tools. That's what this is all about, Philip.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for providing that background. And I'm just going to let our listeners into a little bit of a secret, in that you and I are going to be walking through over the next few podcasts, chapter by chapter, in your excellent book to sort of expand on many of the things that you have just mentioned. Today, we're going to be dissecting chapter 1. And chapter 1's titled The Evolution of the Veterinary Profession. How did we get here? Tell me a bit about this chapter and how it kind of sets the scene for what's to come in the main body of the book.
I think that it invites us to get curious and maybe ease up a bit on the judgment around how did we get here. If you just arrived here and you don't look back at all at how did I even manage to get to this space? It's a miss. We have an opportunity to look at the things that have contributed to all the good things that we want to keep for veterinary medicine and all the things that quite honestly are dysfunctional and no longer so helpful that we need to release. How did we even get to the place where we are in a space of having as much stoicism and having this degree of awareness of self be so diminished that the work is all that it matters, to the point that we wear ourselves down to a nub? That, how did we even get to that space? It's not just us, is also the point, is that it's caregivers. It's not just veterinary professionals. It's teachers, it's environmentalists, it's human medicine, those that care and are in service to other. And particularly when we are supporting healing, resolving, or addressing suffering, those are incredibly important spaces and very ethically fraught, emotionally very, very intense, and very important for us to understand who we are as humans. What? As we go through this, by the way, all of you listening, you're human first. You're a veterinary professional second. So I think that's really what we look at, is like, how did we get here, as far as like, where did our relationship with animals really start 15,000 years ago? We know, as far as our relationship with domestication, why we had those relationships, very utilitarian over the course of time. Animals had jobs, or they served us in terms of farming, food, etc. So there's a lot of reasons why we have the relationship that we do, and it's really only in the last 100 years or so that it's shifted to what we now think of as veterinary medicine. But animal care has been around for a very, very long time.
It has. And I guess that last bit that you've mentioned brings me to my next question, because you talk a bit about the human-animal bond in this chapter and how it has evolved, as you said, from a predominantly utilitarian sort of use of animals for production and so on. I guess, how do you see this bond having evolved beyond that? And what are the implications, do you think, on how we as veterinarians are now managing illnesses, especially in the companion animal field, compared to, say, sort of 20 or 30 years ago even, and perhaps some of the implications that has on us as veterinary professionals?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you think about just the way our whole world has shifted, right? In terms of technology, horses were no longer necessary to transport us, right? So that changed, We also think about the relationship of us with domesticated dogs and cats. Parasite control is a really big deal. I mean, when you can decrease the amount of parasites they're carrying and they are not so dirty, we're more willing to let them into our houses, our couches, and our beds. So that relationship changed. And we think about even like farming, like, any type of food, medicine, and industry, really looking at welfare. And that has been really interesting. The relationship of farmers to their animals, that's always been very important. And I think that's something that often gets missed in this conversation, is around the relationship that and the respect that these animals receive from the farmers, largely because that's their livelihood. The animals doing well means that they will thrive, means that the business will do well. So I think that it's really important that we look at animal welfare as a focus, having continued to evolve and come forward. Society has demanded that. I was having this conversation the other day, Philip, about pain relief, analgesia for animals. And it's only quite recently that we've had the whole repertoire of options for pain relief that we do today. Early in my career, it was Torbigezic, kids.
Hmm.
That was it. We really had very few options that were safe and efficacious in animals. Fish, quote unquote, don't feel pain. Right. So there was a real misunderstanding of the nervous systems of animals as well. So there's really been a boon of understanding of neurophysiology and perception and treatment of pain. There's also been just the development of new approaches, very multimodal and holistic, right? So Western and Eastern working together. And it's not just medicine, it's nutrition, it's movement, it's supplements, et cetera. So then what you're pointing to as well is the development of specialty medicine for all different species and how now the human animal bond is so strong for particularly companion animals. People are willing to invest in cancer treatment. They are willing to invest in blood transfusions. They are willing to invest in things that right now, I love it. We're early days as far as genetic understanding of disease. That's fascinating. That's new territory. And people are willing to go ahead and lean into it as they would for their own family members that are two-legged.
Right. And I guess companion animals, particularly, are living a lot longer than they used to as well because of the quality of nutrition, improved diagnostics, and improved therapy as well. And that also goes to building that longer lasting human animal bond too. And I also want to just raise a point that you mentioned with respect to production animals and the recognition now of the sentient being or the sentient animal and how that is having an increasingly profound impact on the way that we're looking after livestock, even ultimately for food production many times. But that certainly is having a huge impact on the amount of time, effort, and money, and the relationship that exists between farmers and their animals as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, when you think about happy cows equals happy milk for humans, so we hear that. It's true that the animals are less stressed. Then it means if we are obtaining any type of food product from them, it's healthier for us as well. And there's lots of considerations in that for the welfare of the animals, as well as antimicrobial use and all sorts of things that we think about. And so there's real responsibility and ethics involved in our roles as veterinary professionals in keeping the animals well and keeping other humans well as a result. So there's, I think, some very important pieces there. The human animal bond as we go forward is also much more emotionally complex. And I think that, yes, animals living longer is a piece of that. But as we know, society has shifted, and there's many parts of the world where people are choosing to have pets as opposed to children. So that's a real testament to the role these animals play in the holistic well-being of the humans. The Human Animal Bond Research Institute, HABRI, has phenomenal amounts of research and data. So if anybody's keen to go ahead and take a little look and go down some rabbit holes about the positive and important impacts of animals on us as humans, there's heaps of data on why this matters. So I think that that's also contributed to our understanding of just how valuable this relationship is.
Right. Chapter 1 concludes with the title Intentionally Creating Our Future. And it's prefaced by a lovely quote that you put at the beginning of the chapter by Yogi Berra that says, "If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else." And I think a lot of people, regardless of their career, can fall into a trap of just existing in their life rather than planning their life, which can happen due to a whole range of things, many of them indeed that are outside of our control. But can you help explain what you mean by intentionally creating our future and how that might have an impact on our well-being?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought this up as part of today's conversation because it's about roadmap. It's about who you are, and that changes throughout the course of your life. As you come to understand yourself and as you learn and as you grow, you become clearer and clearer on who you are, what makes you feel like you are making a positive contribution and impact in the world. And I think that's really healthy that we continue to assess and reassess as we go forward and having some clarity about what's really important to you in your life and what are the non-negotiables. Being healthy along the way is your responsibility primarily, because only you know what really is going to contribute to your holistic health. And it's also the responsibility of us as a community and as a industry. We really have to look at this as a systemic issue, looking at policies and strategies as much as we look at the individuals. So I think that's really the conversation I try to bring forward as well, is that we need to do this as a collective, be curious, be in that growth mindset, and have some intentionality about what is it that we're trying to mitigate? How do we go about that? And in real life terms, how does it then positively impact our human needs and well-being so that we can be the most effective, we can be safe in the work that we do, and we sustainably, dare I say, enjoy being veterinary professionals longer. So it takes some thoughts, it takes some awareness. It doesn't just
Yes.
happen.
Absolutely. And I think that that kind of leads really nicely into what we're going to be talking about in the next podcast episode with you. And that is chapter 2, which is all about caregiver concerns and how we can, I guess, identify some of the areas that may need to be worked on in terms of improving our health as veterinary professionals, be we a veterinarian, a veterinary technician, a veterinary nurse, or indeed receptionists and kennel hands and everybody who's involved in the whole process of, or the whole field of looking after animals in our lovely profession. Dr. Olson, I would like to say a huge thank you to you today for our conversation and a bit of a review of the first chapter in your book. I know that the subsequent chapters dive into things in a lot more detail and sort of unpack a lot of the things that we've just introduced today. And what I really like about your book is that it's not a problem identification book, it's a problem solving book, and that I think that we sure identify some concerns, but the remainder of the book really helps unpack those and work on ways in which we can solve these concerns or help manage these concerns so that that we can enjoy all of the wonderful things to do with our profession. So thank you so much for taking the time, not only today to have a chat with us about the introduction to your book, but for writing the book in the first place. I know it's not a small undertaking to write a book. And so thank you so much for doing that. And we really look forward to having a chat with you about chapter 2 of this wonderful, wonderful book, Creating Wellbeing and Building Resilience in the Veterinary Profession, A Call to Life.
Yep. Sounds fantastic. And we're going to next chapter, Name It to Tame It, so that we can build some strategies and tips and tricks and tools for ourselves to be the healthiest versions of ourselves as we continue to care. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much again. This has been an episode of Vet Synapse brought to you by Vet Education. I'm Philip, your host for the podcast series. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you can join us very, very soon where we dive into chapter 2 of this wonderful book by Dr. Sonja Olson. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vet Synapse. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to visit our website at veteducation.com.au for more great content and to experience the latest online race-approved veterinary continuing education.